Follow Paddy Power on Snapchat. The username is @ThePaddyPower, and we promise there won't be any boring snaps about gigs, the weather, or the gym.
Hello, I'm Mark Webster, and you're watching the NFL Postcast. We are looking forward to the 2018-19 season, of course, leading to Super Bowl early in next year. And doing that alongside me, Racing Pode's very own Phil Aegis and Ian Wilkerson. And from Paddy Power, down the line from Dublin, Nihai Nagel, good afternoon to you.
Hello, how are you doing?
Very well indeed. Gents, thanks very much indeed for joining me here. And the good news about this as well, Phil, I'll get you to pass on the information, is we'll sit everyone up here nicely with their bets, but there is a formal preview coming up, isn't there?
That's right, yeah, in Thursday's newspaper, there's a 16-page pullout with Ian's done all the main previews.
Excellent.
Profiles of all 32 teams, odds makers' views, all the odds, spread markets.
Only wish I had that in front of me now so I could absolutely deliver such expert knowledge, but luckily you two are here to do that very thing for me. And I suppose we should start the logical place is what has changed in recent weeks. Of course, the postseason has just finished. They've had their warm-up games. The trades have been done. Rosters have been sorted out. Where's the big changes for you?
Yeah, it's all very formulaic, isn't it? Like, you do get a lot of changes from the time that the Super Bowl comes along in February until we're all up and running again in September. Coaching changes have obviously, you know, there's been a few of those. You have a Black Monday when they all get the push, and all lose their job. There's been a few key coaching changes I've been looking at. I particularly there's a one in Chicago. They've rolled out the old and rolled in the new, really, with a guy called Matt Nagy is going to be taking over at Soldier Field, and I think that could be a beneficial one for them. This is a key coaching change for me, as far as on the field is concerned, because I think he can bring out the best in their second-year quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky. But the big coaching change, the big newsworthy coaching change is John Gruden going from the Monday Night Football commentary box.
Yes.
First time in 10 years.
The safety of broadcasting to the front line of actual coaching again. Yeah.
Which is going to be fascinating.
Indeed it is. That's right. And he's had to be busy in terms of trades. There's big moves going on there as well. Who are you looking at as being important trades?
John Gruden was at the centre of the biggest trade of the lot when he got rid of Khalil Mack, who's one of the best defensive players in the whole league. Everyone thought it was mad when they suggested he'd be letting him go, but he's gone to...
Well, they've come up with a few reasons for why that's happened. Some might say excuses, but it has happened. That's the thing. The
reason seems to be that Gruden's trying to get a roster full of players who were still playing the last time he was in the league. He's got a bunch of
familiar faces. That's all he needs.
It's just going to be fascinating, though. That I mean, sport generally has changed so much in the last 10 years, particularly with the development of analytics and things like that. Judging from, I've read a couple of interviews with him, I don't think he's a complete dinosaur in that factor. And you could have seen when he was in the commentary box, he was so intense with his wiggling around and so perceptive about the game.
Yes.
And he's got a great work ethic, hasn't he? He's always sort of get up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
And he looked like a baby when he started as a coach anyway, so he doesn't look that much older now, so there's a certain logic to all of that. Go get Nihai in at this particular point as well, of course. You know, it's interesting, we are talking about Gruden in particular there. Are there any players that you've looked at in terms of the trades that have really caught your eye?
Yeah, look, the one for me really, Mark, are the Rams. Like I think the Rams are obviously going all in. They traded for Brandon Cooks, they traded for Ndamukong Suh, and they've also got big money contracts down for Aaron Donald and Todd Gurley. So I think they're really looking to win now, and they're also a team that we find have been heavily backed to win the Super Bowl. So we really don't want the LA Rams to win this year.
Glad you asked that because I made that point really. Because funny enough, is that I did read one article, which is an interesting one, which is the LA final being discussed, which is a distinct possibility. So let's look at that, shall we? Now let's look at the outrights and tell us who you think we should be. I suppose where the value is going to be is obviously the main thing, but then the problem with this is that I think there's some heavy hitters out there that everyone's on.
Yeah, it's such a competitive. It's not like Manchester City are going to win the Premier League. You know, there's 16. I think there's about 16 teams, probably out of 32, will have a realistic hope that they can go all the way. And sometimes what really makes it for me is that New England are favourites and then quite a bit short than everybody else. They're the only team at a single-figure price, but I think that's based on the fact of who they're playing rather than the quality of their team. So they're to be got at this year. So going a little bit further down the line, a team with a great defence and a good running game are Jacksonville came so close to beating them in the effectively the semi-final last year when they lost to threw it away. They were winning 10 points up with a quarter to go against New England. I think they'll do well because I think they can. The misgiving about them is always Blake Bortles, their quarterback. People don't take to him at all. Bit error prone, but he's got a great run. He's playing. I think there's 8 teams he's playing at who had past defences that were ranked 24th or worse last year.
So he's
if it's going to be their year,
he's
this
got
is
that
it.
right. Funny, but I haven't mentioned that but the team that did show us that the Patriots are fallible, they can lose one, is of course Philadelphia, the Eagles.
The Eagles, yeah, they're not going to be far off. And my Super Bowl picks, Mihal's mentioned them already, would be the Rams.
Okay.
Yep, I think they improved as much next year as any team I've seen since the start of the New England era when they went from Tom Brady's first year, basically, when they from nowhere to the Super Bowl. The Patriots 150-1 the year they beat the St. Louis Rams as it was in the final. Great show on turf. Sean McVay, the coach of the Rams, is only 32 now. He's not even old enough to play for John Gruden yet.
I don't. That's not really right to set me this early in the proceedings, is there? Yes. That is amazing, yes. I mean, but as I say, it will be interesting to find out whether the youth and the modern game sit well together in terms of the coaching.
At the Rams, they've got the dream scenario, whereas they picked Jared Goff, their quarterback, at the first pick, the draft before last. Now second year, he's really kicked on, and of course he's still on his rookie contract.
Yeah.
So they've got plenty of money they can throw around and get some good veterans like Marcus Peters, like Sue, and other players. So now it looks like they've got the whole kit, and they're going. Yeah. I don't know whether they're a little bit short for me, but they're a big threat.
I should just say as well that we'll be going through the divisions during the course of this postcast anyway, so you're going to get the breakdown of the way that the teams are being set up, and perhaps that'll help you with your decision-making process as well, that's for sure. And I should ask Nihal at this particular stage, given the fact that we have talked about, I guess, that there's 3 or 4 names which are very heavy hitters there. Is anyone just on the outside for you that you'd be looking at as well?
Yeah, Mark, for me, the New Orleans Saints are the team. I actually backed them a few weeks ago at 22s, and they've come in a bit since, but we have them at 14s. For me, I can't understand how you would want to back the Packers at 10s and not touch the Saints at 22s or at 14s, as we have them now. They have Drew Brees, one of the best quarterbacks in the game. They have Sean Payton, one of the best coaches in the game. They have Kamara, probably one of the most exciting running backs in the league. Then on last year on defense, they seem to turn things around with the addition of players like Lattimore. They've gave up a lot of kind of draft collateral this year to get Davenport, and to me they seem like a complete team who are in win now mode as well. Mm-hmm. And to me, at the prices, I think the New Orleans Saints are the pick.
They got. I like Teddy Bridgewater they brought in as well.
Yeah,
and he's a good
really
player.
Nice
Nice little fit that one. Could be. He could be a real star of the season. But again, there will be some genuine heavy hitters that we should talk about now, which would be your regular season MVP. Guess what? Tom Brady's probably up there, isn't he? Let's have a guess. What do you think?
Has Mihal got the odds for those?
Yeah, if you go through the prices there, like we have Brady, Rodgers, and Breeze all tied together at the top. That's how the market's looking at the moment. As a man who's kind of backing the Saints outright, it's only fair for me to tip up Drew Brees for the regular season MVP as well. He's thrown for at least 4,800 yards in 6 of the last 7 seasons. Importantly as well, last year the Saints leaned on the run game quite a bit, but Mark Ingram is suspended for the first 4 games this year, and Kamara is kind of a good receiving back, so I can see him throwing for a lot of yards and throwing for more touchdowns this year. So for me, he's the pick in the regular season MVP market.
It's important to account for that, isn't it? Because it is a regular season, so it's a 17-week part of the season.
You don't have to win the Super Bowl.
You haven't got to worry about that. But men going missing through injury and suspension. 4 games is a lot. Obviously, it's a big chunk of your regular season.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you took the most valuable player definition down to the bare bones, then Rodgers would be the pick because. If it weren't for Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay are going nowhere this year. So, but I wouldn't follow that particular advice. But I would agree with Mihail. I think Breeze is a good bet for that. I like the Saints as well. They're strong on when they the last time they got to the Super Bowl was mainly on the basis of their offensive play. But they've improved a hell of a lot on the other side of the ball in the last couple of years.
That makes sense.
And I really think that they're strong package as well, even though they're playing in one of the toughest divisions.
Like the experienced men are still being seen as the leaders, aren't they? Then
they are, yeah. And the funny thing on the MVP market for me was people were talking about Carson Wentz as a candidate last year when Philadelphia were going well. Then he got injured, and they won the Super Bowl without him. So it sort of proves that he wasn't the most valuable player on the team, doesn't it?
Well, and probably to revise the fact that he may still be, because he's still hurt. I think the knee's still playing him up. He's not going to be replaced.
He'll still get the credit, but it was the defense.
You're not a big fan, though, are you?
Not a big fan of Vince, no.
Well, you'd have to actually see him play, I suppose, to get that opinion slightly changed, I think. Again, we can look at the details of that when we come back in terms of breaking down the divisional bets, which we're going to be doing shortly. But in terms of the fact that the quarterbacks often dominate in these conversations, we're going to talk about the Rams a lot because clearly they're a fun team to look at, and as Niall's pointed out there, good value to be got at. But they got Todd Gurley, and a running back as a contender in there. Is one of 3 men that kind of got an of the year sort of candidate last year. Yeah. I'd like to see a non-quarterback just to break it up a bit.
I mean, the thing with the Rams is they're too loaded now to have a star player on the team because they've got Aaron Donald, who's probably the best defensive player in the league, but he's got Sue next to him now as well. So choose which one you want to try and stop there coming at you. And but then offensively they've got.
You do have to be eye-catching though to win a market.
This is the thing.
So I think we're one of the teams
like people who can technically appreciate a good defensive player or good best win in the world.
Yes,
you're going to have to you're going to have to be a Showtime player to have.
Well, that's why occasionally a wide receiver might come in, and of course Odell Beckham Jr. signing that contract, that enormous contract to keep New York sports alive, basically in principle. How about that, Nihal? I mean, if you dig deeper into the odds, are there other areas of the field of play that we can be looking at?
For the MVP regular season? Yeah, like it's really quarterbacks and a few kind of big name running backs. If you look at the defensive side, you have Aaron Donald, Antonio Brown as a wide receiver, but really outside of the quarterbacks, I would say it's kind of unlikely that anybody else will feature.
Yeah, exactly. As you say, it's because it's all about, it's eye-catching stuff, isn't it? You're going to have a record-breaking season if you're going to be that fella, aren't you?
If Ezekiel Elliott has 2,000 yards or something like that for Dallas, that could do the job. But something like that.
Could happen, could it? Yeah, okay, good to know. Okay, right, there you go. Well, this is the general picture for you, therefore, that we've got. We know basically the runners and riders in terms of who we think are going to go all the way, the individual players that could actually do that job for them as well. When we come back, we'll break it down division by division so you can see which team is going to do better this season.
Success ain't earned, it's bought. That's why at Paddy Power, we paid the big bucks for the best tech nerds in the world to develop our new fastest ever app. Download the new app from the App Store or Play Store now. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
Welcome back to the NFL Postcast. Of course, it is the Racing Post coverage for you in association with Paddy Power, giving you all the best bets for this forthcoming season in the NFL. And we're going to do it division by division for you now with Phil and Ian alongside me. And now we're going to talk to Nihal first of all, who's going to give us the details that we need to know about the NFC East. Let me run this through with you, which incorporates the Dallas Cowboys, the New York Giants, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Washington Redskins, Nihal.
Yeah, we're 8-13, the Philadelphia Eagles, 7-2, the Cowboys, 5-1, the New York Giants, and 8-1, the Washington Redskins.
Yeah, it was a romp for the Eagles last year, that's for sure, in this particular division. Any little changes that we can look forward to?
Well, I mean, it's 2004 since the Eagles were the last team to actually retain this championship. It just goes from, it flips around all the time. I do think they're the strongest team in the division, but I've got a feeling that we might see better from the New York Giants this year.
Really?
Yeah, they've upgraded their terrible running game that they've had for the last 10, well, God knows how long. With Saquon Barkley and the second overall pick, that's going to be a big plus for them. Takes the pressure off Eli Manning, the quarterback who's having problems, who had problems in their 3-13 season, I think.
Yes.
Beckham's back as well, their star man.
Exactly.
They're going to be a lot stronger this year. So I like them, and my bet would be to go over 7 New York Giants wins.
Well, that would be a real change of form for them, that's for sure. They're relying on Eli Manning again. They've not changed their mind there. Did that make sense for you?
I think they made a mistake not taking the quarterback this year and taking Barkley because they're trying to make out that they like this Kyle Lauletta they took in the 4th round and he might be the future, and that's why they're not too fussed about keeping Manning on for a couple of years. But I think that if Manning goes down, I think they're struggling this year. I'm an Eagles. I think I see the Eagles repeating in that one. They went from 4th to 1st last year. In that division, but yeah, no, I think they're strong. The defence is there. Doug Peterson's proved himself to be a really good coach, and I think the others aren't quite there. Washington going to be pretty much what they were last year, and Cowboys are going through quite a big amount of changes at the moment.
A couple of key losses offensively at Dallas with Jason Witten going and Des Bryant as well. A lot of emphasis on Ezekiel Elliott. He's going to have a lot of work to do.
Exactly. It's amazing, this, Nihal. The fact is that there you go. The Cowboys still struggling away, and recently announced the most richest sports team on the Forbes list. They must still be doing something, right?
Yeah, like Jerry Jones is famous for spending money on high-profile players, but he's not really good at building out his squad.
No.
I actually fancied the Cowboys for this division at a price earlier on in the summer, but at the moment, given their offensive line injuries, I would have my doubts and can't see aside the Eagles. But I wouldn't mind having a chat about the Giants either, because I'm really opposed to the Giants, to be perfectly honest.
Diverse opinions there, I think we can safely say, yes.
Yeah, much like Phil, I think the Giants made a big mistake by picking Barkley so high when they still have Eli Manning at quarterback. They cut Davis Webb, who they drafted last year in the 3rd round. And I quite like the under, and the Giants wins the 6-5 with us. I think that's a decent bet.
Well, there you go. You've got a nice binary choice there, been selected by a couple of our experts for you. Moving on to the NFC North, we talked about the Chicago Bears earlier as well. Potentially a hitter this time round. They're in the same division as Detroit Lions, the Green Bay Packers, and the Minnesota Vikings, Nihal.
Yeah, we're the Vikings 11-10, Packers 11-8, Lions 8-1, and Bears 8-1.
Right, that's it. This is a tougher division to call in terms of a necessary win, except, of course, the Vikings were all conquering last year.
Yeah, I think they're the team to beat out of this 4. They've had an upgrade at quarterback, I think, with Kirk Cousins coming in for Case Keenum. I would anticipate that they're going to be strong again. Although, I'm quite sweet. We talked earlier about the coaching situation at Chicago. I'm quite sweet on them this year. Yeah. I think they could have a lot of 2 5-11 seasons. They've been going nowhere under John Fox, and I think they'll pick up. So I'd go over 6.5 Chicago wins as my bet in this division. Way
to go there and see that. We mentioned obviously Aaron Rodgers there. His name in terms of the Green Bay Packers. What they've certainly done is they seem to have helped him out a lot in free agency in terms of the kind of players they bring in to try and support him. Yeah,
that's right. It felt at times in the past few years that it's Green Bay have been Aaron Rodgers and 21 dustbins, and they'd have a chance. But sometimes it feels like they're trying it. But yeah, they couldn't get it done without him when he wasn't there last year. And I'm still very much a Vikings fan in that division. I think they've got excellent receivers in Adam Thielen, Stephen Diggs, and Dalvin Cook, the running back we didn't see much of last year, but we did see was very good. Danielle Hunter, a lovely name for a big chap, Danielle.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone takes makes a joke to his face about that one. Yeah, that's happening all the time.
Their secondary as well. They upgraded that over the last 2 or 3 years as Xavier Rhodes and Trey Waynes has come on big. Right. So yeah, the Vikings, I can see them. I think they can see off the Packers again.
Makes sense. Yeah, I mean exactly. I mean, out and out favourites for the division. But from your point of view, anything else that we could look at?
Yeah, I can't see outside the Vikings either, to be honest. I'd be interested to see how Patricia, the new head coach of the Lions, performs. Yeah. I think they'll be a bit closer as well. I agree that the Bears will be much improved this year, but there's only the Vikings for me in this division, really.
Yeah. With Detroit as well, they're another team, a bit like the Giants. They've had a terrible running game for years, and he's got Blount in.
Yes.
He can burl his way through and take a little bit of pressure off Matt Stafford, who's been excellent, but carrying the offence on his own.
The Bill Belichick assistants don't have a great record when they go to other teams to become head coaches. I mean, Romeo Crennel, Charlie Weiss, Josh McDaniels all struggled.
I suspect it's because no one's ever made a decision other than Bill Belichick when you're working for Bill Belichick would probably be my take on that one there. NFC South now then, please, Nihal, which is the Atlanta Falcons, Carolina Panthers, New Orleans Saints, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Yeah, 6-4 the Saints, 17-10 the Falcons, 3-1 the Panthers, and 8-1 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Did the Panthers get sold yet? They're up for grabs, aren't they? I don't know if they've moved on yet because they'll be the Panthers, but they won't necessarily be in the Carolinas anymore once that deal ultimately gets done. Yeah. This was a very even division last year.
Yeah, 3 cracking teams in this division, and they'll all fancy themselves. I'd say Carolina would be the one that I'm less enthusiastic about. I worry about sometimes Cam Newton's ability ability to get the job done when the chips are down, and he doesn't seem the sort of player who drags his team over the line. Atlanta very fearsome offensively. They were, 10-6 last year. It was a massive disappointment, really, compared to what they'd done the season before. The Saints I've talked about, I'm really keen on. The bet I like here is that the fourth team, Tampa Bay, they're really up against it. They've got no Jameis Winston for the first 3 matches. Their quarterback, he's suspended. But I've had a look at obviously they've got to play all 3 of these teams twice.
Yes.
6 of those. They've got to play Philadelphia.
Yes.
They've got to play Pittsburgh. And they're playing 3 teams who I think are going to be on the upgrade. San Francisco, the Giants and the Bears. So I think 12-1 about the Buccaneers having the worst record in the league is a cracking price.
Yes, it's a distinct possibility. 5-11 actually looks impressive last year by what they're going to have to try and do this year then.
I've got them a long way behind the other 3. And it's always the best. For years, it's been the best division to watch with the indoor stadiums. The Atlanta and New Orleans always put on a good show, and they're always high scoring. The Saints have always been. Last few years, they've been a bit more like sort of Kevin Keegan's Newcastle. They're all on the attack, and God knows what happens at the back. But they've actually improved the defence the last couple of years, so that's why I've got the Saints having the edge in that one. One player I'm looking forward to seeing in that division is Christian McCaffrey, the Panthers running back. He's absolutely sensational at times, and if you've got a fancy draft coming up, then I'd stick him in your team.
Okay, well, that's a whole other world, isn't it? But that's also very handy advice. I mean, the Panthers did really well last year, given the fact they did have so many issues away from the field of play, and as I say, I don't even think they've necessarily been resolved as we speak. But do you like them?
I actually don't like them. I'm quite down on the Panthers this year. I've actually backed them to have under 9 wins. I think their defense this year is a bit weaker. Thomas Davis is suspended for a few games. I really think this is a 2-horse race, as the lads mentioned. Tampa Bay are up against us. There's a bet I spotted out there for Carolina to finish 3rd in the division at 2-1, which I think is a good bet. I think the Saints, the Falcons are much further ahead from the Panthers, and the Buccaneers are up against it. So I think 2-1 for Carolina to finish 3rd is a good bet. Yeah,
I can see that. Okay, so Nihal, also our friend from Paddy Power, giving us the odds here. Let's finish off this division and this section. NFC West, Arizona Cardinals, the Los Angeles Rams, the San Francisco 49ers, and the Seattle Seahawks. So the coastline teams there sort of dominating that particular division. Who's dominating the betting for you?
Yes, 8-13 the Rams, their short price favs. We're 3-1 the Niners, 9-2 the Seahawks, and 12-1 the Arizona Cardinals.
Now again, 3 teams there, 49ers aside, didn't look particularly good last year. But again, it's a tough old division to be part of.
Like a train, though,
exactly. And there's decent records again for those 3 teams. Difficult to get a piece of paper between them, isn't it?
It is. Well, Arizona could be in a sort of a rebuilding process after Bruce Arians left. The Seahawks are the interesting team there, because I think they could well be very, very bad.
Really?
Yes. They're nothing like the Seahawks of old. If in your head you think dominant defence, but they've changed about 60% of their roster this year. They've got almost nothing left. Pete Carroll's trying to sort of shrug it off, saying that he's used to changing all the players from when he was a college coach. So having a new set each year. But I mean, the Legion of Boom, now the Legion of Bust, they're all gone. They're all doing other things. Offensive line were offensive last year. Russell Wilson was just running around like crazy, trying to do things. So I think the Seahawks could even finish last in the NFC West behind Arizona.
Oh, right, okay, so we're going against them.
I'd agree with that. I mean, the last couple of years we've had Arizona and Seattle dominating this division, and now it's flopped on its head, I think. Rams plainly the team to beat. We've talked about how, their Super Bowl credentials. I'm sweet on San Francisco. I think they... I was impressed. It seemed that it was always a rebuilding season last year when Carl Shannon, he wasn't in a desperate rush to. He knew he had time to sort things out. He's now got his. They won one of their first 11 games, which is obviously not ideal. But he's got his quarterback now in Garoppolo, and they won 5 of their last 6 games. So they've got a bit of a head of steam, and because they were poor in seasons before, they've done quite some decent drafting on the sort of like defensive side as well. So I reckon that I'd give them a poke of getting into the playoffs, perhaps taking one of the wild cards.
Well, there's the thing, and Neo, you know how it works in this as well. I mean, the San Francisco 49ers, household name team, which always means they get that kind of extra support, don't they? Sort of grand national favourite style team they are. Would that be supported in the betting?
Yeah. The Niners were 20s with us for the Super Bowl, which to me seemed a bit short. I'm actually a Niners fan myself, and I think they're going places. But for me, they were a bit short in the betting. But you're right, we have some of our more popular bets were the Niners outright, and we've had a lot of money on Jimmy Garoppolo at 20s for regular season MVP as well. But mainly here in this division, I agree with the lads. I'd be quite down on the Seahawks. We've actually had a lot of money on them to miss the playoffs. They were backed from 5-6 and 2-5 to miss the playoffs, and I think that's quite understandable given how their roster has kind of been decimated.
Yeah, makes sense to me as well. Okay, there you go. So that is Nihal you're listening to there. Of course, he is from Paddy Power, giving us the odds. Phil and Ian here, our Racing Post correspondents. And just remind us, we're going to be able to get all of this information down on paper, aren't we, very soon?
It's on paper in Thursday's Racing Post, 16-page betting guide, and also online from Thursday and Wednesday night, 8 o'clock.
Lovely, right. Okay, so you watch this, take this all on board, read it. You'll absolutely nail it for the entire season. And when we come back after the break, we'll be looking at the AFC.
Check out Paddy's Rewards Club. Simply place 5 bets of £10 or more across any sport in a week, and you'll get a free £10 bet then next week. T&Cs apply. 18+. BeGambleAware.org.
Welcome back to the final part of our NFL Postcast. Of course, it is the Racing Post preview for you here that you're going to get all your best numbers as well in terms of your betting, because we have Michal Nagel from Paddy Power joining us down the line to fill us in on exactly where we should be putting our money. We've given you the NFC before the break. AFC time now, starting the East if we can. Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins, the New England Patriots and the New York Jets is what we started with there, Michal.
Yeah, as you can imagine, the Patriots are very short here. We have them at 1-14. It's 12-1 the Dolphins, 14-1 the Jets, and 10-1 the Bills.
Now, of course, Bills got out last time, you know, in terms of like they got the 6th spot, they got themselves into the playoff section. So there's something worth chasing there, even if you're not going to get the divisional title.
Well. Miami made the playoffs the year before as well, but 14 out of the last 15 they've won the Pats, and the only time they didn't win was when Brady did his knee.
Yes.
So it's not looking too rosy for the others in this, and who are going for a little bit of. There's a little bit of question marks among them. Buffalo and the Jets are going to be, if they don't start week 1, they're going to be fielding rookie quarterbacks pretty early on. Whereas Miami, Ryan Tannehill's coming back from a long injury. He's lost his best receiver. Jarvis Landry's gone to play for Phil's boys over at Cleveland. And I'm sceptical about all of them. So the best bet for me, keep it simple. New England to win all 6 divisional games, 11-8.
Oh, there you go. Nice. I like that. I mean, as I say, because I suppose that's where we've got to look for our value here, isn't it? Because the chance of them returning 2 teams to the postseason are unlikely this year.
Yeah, well, I've been trying to oppose New England because I think, you know, it takes it to extremes. Bill Belichick proving he can win with nothing much except Tom Brady again. But they were exposed a bit in the Super Bowl, and there've been years when they've struggled again before. I'm trying to find someone to take them on. You can't take them on with Buffalo. No. I think they could be one of the worst teams in the league this year. The Jets, Darnold's promising, but not in his first year. You wouldn't want him. So I think you could take a chance on Miami. Were they 12-1 for the division?
Around that sort of territory, we're looking at trying to find our way past the Pats for some value.
They'll probably be the stronger, stronger of the 3.
Maybe to make the playoffs, man, because they do get to play the Bills twice and the Jets twice. That's possibly 4 in the bag. They've got good Cameron Wake still there. Tannehill's not top level, but at least he's a functional quarterback, which is more than a couple of the other teams.
I mean, we can't have 2 teams in New York doing quite well. They're like the boys like the Giants, so the Jets obviously are destined for nothing.
Yeah, I think the Jets are in rebuild mode. Obviously, they're starting Darnold in week 1, which is going to be interesting. But like Phil, I think if anybody is going to come into contention here, it's Dolphins. And I think the Dolphins look to me like an 8-8 team or a 7-9 team. The Bills are awful, and we've had a lot of money on their season win total unders. So, like probably every bookie out there, we'd be hoping the Bills somehow manage to win 6 or 7 games to beat that total. But the Pats are going to pose this again, I think. Not
looking good, though, according to the boys here, that's for sure. AFC North then, Baltimore Ravens, Cincinnati Bengals, the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Well, Norton's 16. for the Peterland Browns. Yeah, no, just ponder on that for a moment, and let's see how that affects it from your end, Emil, shall we?
Yeah, it's 4-11 the Steelers, 7-2 the Ravens, 8-1 the Bengals, and 14-1 the Cleveland Browns.
Decent money for them.
Well, I could do 2 hours on the Browns if you like.
All good, I hope.
Well, yeah, I mean, we try not to get too excited for the pre-season because they went 4-0 in pre-season last year and then lost all 16 that counted. Okay. So that wasn't so good. But there's weird things going on in Cleveland. They've gone from having 0 quarterbacks worth having for the last 10 years to just having 2 who actually know how to play the game this year, which is amazing. They've got Tyrod or Tyrod, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Taylor from Buffalo got to the playoffs last year. He's like the opposite of Deshaun and Kozo who they had last year. He used to drive down the field, get towards the red zone, and just intercept it every time, or throw the ball away, or drop it on the floor, or something like that. He was a turnover machine. Taylor was the opposite last year. He was very rarely intercepted, and his value to Buffalo was shown that the week they made the odd decision to start Nathan Peterman, who was a rookie last year, and then he had 5 interceptions in the first half, and they decided to go back to Taylor, which wasn't surprising.
We're making it up as they go along. I mean, that is really the gist of it, isn't it? They're just no shape, and they were just a sorry mess. Yeah. Sorry to say that. Got anything positive we can?
What about the Browns? I think, they're getting some talented players. They've got some, they seem to be going through, all right, well, we'll get through the draft, and now they've sort of like got a little bit more experience, and they've made a few moves in free agency this year. Carlos Hyde's coming in running back. Jarvis Landry, he'll look the part.
Yeah.
They're going to be on the upgrade, but I can't see them making leaps and bounds. If they got half a dozen wins, they wouldn't have had a bad season, I think. And
that will work for you.
I mean, it's a funny old division. I mean, Pittsburgh, they've got the big names, but I know Le'Veon Bell's still in his contract negotiations.
And injured though as well, isn't he? I mean, was that a big deal?
Well, they've played right with him.
Yeah, true.
Browns Browns, excellent. Roethlisberger, they're worthy divisional favourites. But Baltimore, big season for them, particularly for Joe Flacco, because he's got the Heisman winner breathing down his neck, waiting on the sideline, Lamar Jackson to take over. So I think they could perhaps finish second, and 13-8 for the Ravens to make the playoffs. Not a terrible bet.
It's always fun in those stadiums when you've got that superstar on the touchline and the fella just trying to cling on to his spot on the field of play, that's for sure. From your point of view, Mel, obviously Steelers sort of like to a great extent ran away last year, so can anyone chase them down? Yeah,
I actually quite like the Ravens this year. I think the Ravens can push them close. I've actually backed them at over 8.5 wins at even money. I think they're not a bad bet at 7-2 to win the division. Flacco is apparently playing really well in practice, seeing as they drafted Lamar Jackson. They've added some wide receivers this year. They've got Crabtree and John Brown, which they've got more potential. They've got to always have a good defense, and they obviously have a great head coach. So I think the Ravens won't be too far off it. And also, I have this funny feeling about the Steelers this year. I'm not quite sure about them. Like the whole Bell thing is rumbling on a bit too long for my liking. Big Ben during the off season was talking about retiring. I kind of think it could be the last year that Bell is in Pittsburgh, and I'm not sure about Steelers this year. I think they probably make the playoffs, but they always seem to leave you down over the last few years when it comes to big games. And I like the Ravens to win the division at 7-2. That'd be my pick on this. Yeah,
okay, that's the good info, because, of course, you may look back at this and say, well, the Steelers look like a shoo-in, but that's obviously clearly not the case for you lot. Let's move on now to, AFC South. Houston Texans, of course, Indianapolis Colts, Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans, please, Mal.
Yeah, 7-4 the Jaguars, 15-8 the Texans, 3-1 the Titans, and 5-1 the Colts.
Right. 5-1 the Colts. And the Texans, they sort of very even last year. Is one of those looking to emerge as a better
there's
team?
Definitely more scope for Houston to improve, because they had desperate luck with injuries last year. Deshaun Watson, he looked $1 million when he was playing, and then he suffered a knee injury, the quarterback. JJ Watt had another frustrating season with injuries. They're going to have more people coming back. I know a lot of at Indianapolis, it's all about Andrew Luck's shoulder. The quarterback didn't play at all last year. People seem to think that they're going to make a massive change. They'll be on a massive upgrade if the number 12's back. But I'm not so sure. They got problems all over the place. They were dismal defensively. They didn't have much of a running game last year. I don't think they're going to come on leaps and bounds at all, and it wouldn't surprise me if they had a similar sort of campaign.
Yeah.
So 11-8, under 6.5. Indianapolis wins. I think that's a cracking one.
It's not the most thrilling of divisions, is it? And I think that plays out in what we discussed.
It's sort of this division's interesting because it's sort of the sort of role reverses, the opposite of what it always was. And in the old days, the Colts would win 14 or 13 games every year, and everyone else would win 3 or 4 or 5. Whereas this year, I think the others are all reasonably decent, and the Colts could. I think the match it would be the Colts to come last in the division because you know there's very little there. I mean the new head coach, Frank Reich, which sounds like France in German, but he's apparently, you know, he's got quite a good reputation, so he might turn it around. But you know, they've got, you know, people scheduled to start for them this week that, you know, would be 3rd or 4th string on other teams.
Yeah. It's one of those ones, isn't it? I know it's got to be there. You know, it's the inherent nature of the fact that it's a division that's part of the NFL, but it doesn't inspire too much, does it?
No, not really. The Colts are a funny one. Obviously, I have high hopes for Frank Reich as a head coach, but obviously they're heavily dependent on Andrew Luck and his shoulder. He's been out for so long. You kind of have a few doubts about how he's going to come back from injury. But if he reclaims some of the old form, they'll be around this 7 or 8 win mark, I think. But that's heavily dependent on Luck. The Texans, I've backed the Texans wins over 8.5. I've had a bet on them already. Like the lads said, they had injuries last year. They've JJ Watt back, who, if anybody's seen him, his videos on Instagram the off season, he looks like the Incredible Hulk or something. They signed the Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu from the Cardinals. I just think they have a really good defense, and if Deshaun Watson can play anything like he did for those few games last year, I think that the Texans could win this division actually, and but the better bet, but safer bet is their win total over 8.5.
Yeah, I can see that. As you say, it's up for grabs, but like there's value to be found in there.
Already said, you know, I'm a big fan of Jacksonville as well, that we talked about earlier. They've got all the pieces in place for me as well.
Yeah,
to do really.
Jags to win it.
Could be, get that job done. Okay, well, let's finish with the real star of the show. This, for me, I always enjoy to see what goes on with the AFC West. Denver Broncos, Kansas City Chiefs, Oakland Raiders, Los Angeles Chargers, and we've discussed a lot of these teams already as being real heavy hitters for this season, haven't we?
Yeah, so we're 7-5 the Chargers, 21-10 the Chiefs, 4-1 the Raiders, and 9-2 the Broncos.
Right, now, is that an easy pack to shuffle, these 4 teams, for you?
I like the Chargers. I think they're worthy favourites in this. They won 9 games last year, but they lost their opening 4. You know, I think it was a difficult transition for them. They did their first move to San Diego, which obviously they haven't got to cope with this year. Three of those 4 defeats were by 3 points or fewer. They were tight games, and they really could have pushed on. They're a strong defensive team. Rivers is a cracking quarterback, really good, really like
Experienced.
him. Underrated.
Yeah.
Doesn't get the same adulation as a lot of the other big names.
Exactly right.
I'm not mad on the other teams. Oakland could be anything under Gruden. We've just got to wait and see, haven't we? We've got to wait how that comes out. Patrick Mahomes, the new quarterback at Kansas City, he's been earning rave reviews, but he's got to play against some of the toughest pass defences in the league. Could be a bit of he's a second year, but it could be a bit of a baptism of fire for him. So I'm not too mad on them, although they're very dynamic.
Yeah.
They were great offensively last year, weren't they? And Denver, you know, they've got, you know, they'll push on a bit, but they're still not quite the fearsome outfit that they were a few years ago.
So 4th of 4 for you in terms of them. Chiefs interest me this week. Andy Reid's been banging on quite dramatically about the fact that he's gone for youth. This is his big deal, which is wonderful, but perhaps not for this season.
I think he's made a mistake. I think the Chiefs missed their chance last year. I thought they could have been the team to beat the Patriots last year, but they didn't get through to play them. They were tactically, they were well matched up to have the sort of game to beat the Patriots.
Didn't they? They beat them on the opening night.
Yeah, they beat them in the
40-odd points.
but they managed to lose to the Titans before they got there. I think they've made a mistake getting rid of Alex Smith. Getting rid of Alex Smith and going to Mahomes this early, because they forced their own hand by paying so much in draft stock to go up and get him. So they had to, if you've paid, if you spent that much on your toys, you've got to put them on the field. But they've lost their quarterbacks now. I think they've missed their cornerbacks, Marcus Peters. So I think they might have missed their window a bit. The Chargers should well have been there, I think, but they've already had the Charger disease has struck again, which is injuries. Well, I don't know what their physios do or how their training regime is, but they've always seemed to have half their squad out for the season. The tight end Hunter Henry's gone, so they've brought back Antonio Gates, who's again old enough to play for John Gruden in Oakland, and Jason Verrett, the cornerback's out for the year as well. He's a top player as well. Denver. John Elway is supposed to be in charge there, but he doesn't seem to be able to find a quarterback, which is
ironic.
Should
we call it? Yeah.
He might be better off doing it himself, I think.
Do you reckon this might be perhaps the master plan? If they can't be it, then I will pull on the uniform again. It could be anything. Could be a thing. I mean, we obviously you mentioned the Chargers at the top. But injury issues there. Old man Rivers, is there going to be their quarterback for this particular season? So are you behind that bet as well?
Yeah, I can't see outside the Chargers. I kind of agree with most of what the lads have been saying. Defensively, I know they have a few injuries, but defensively they're still so strong. Their secondary is really strong. They added Derwin James in the draft this year, and I think he's a decent bet to be Defensive Rookie of the Year, 11-1. And offensively, even with Hunter Henry going down and Gates being about 69, they have lots of players in the offense out wide. They have Mike Williams last year, who they drafted quite high, who didn't do much last year, but kind of I think in his second season this year, he's a big man with a big catch radius, and I think he could be a real threat in the red zone. So yeah, I can't see outside the Chargers winning this division, to be perfectly honest. Yeah,
fair enough. Okay, listen, we're just going to have time to go through a few special bets and indeed the naps as well. And let's start actually with you, Harlow, because a popular favourite, What's on Paddy? What should we find on there?
Yeah, so What's Odds Paddy is our feature that we get people emailing into us and tweeting us with random markets. It could be something ridiculous, like from Mike Evans receiving yards, Gurley rushing yards, and Roethlisberger's passing yards all added up together, or it could be team kind of specials and things like that. So we have a whole host of them on sites if people want to go check them out. Two ones that I picked out kind of from the What Odds Paddy specials are kind of both kind of short enough in price. So any AFC North team to win the Super Bowl at 7-1. I know it was a bit down in the Steelers, but I think the division is quite strong this year, and I think the Steelers probably make the playoffs. The Ravens will make the playoffs. The Browns probably won't make the playoffs, but they're much improved. But I think the Bengals are improved as well, so I think that's a decent bet.
Yeah.
And also any NFC South team to win the Super Bowl at 13-2. You're basically taking the Saints or the Falcons in this, but as I said earlier, I'm sweet on the Saints, and the Falcons won't be far off either, so I think that's a decent bet.
I like that. I like the way they break down the divisions.
I've got it written down here, Mark. Yeah, the NFC South team to win the Super Bowl. I had that as one of my four from the What Odds Paddy's, which is cracking.
I can see the logic, even though this is obviously this is the fun part of it. Then suddenly I've got all steely-eyed about this now. How about yourself? What bets?
Like me, I said I love that one. I love the NFC South team to win the Super Bowl for the same reason as me. I liked Jimmy Garoppolo, Matt Stafford, and Phil Rivers to throw 30 or more touchdown passes at 9-1. Garoppolo wasn't that prolific in his first outings. He threw 7 in his 5 games last year. But I'd anticipate he'll be more productive, and it's definitely within the scope of the other two. Rivers, his totals of the last 3 years, 28, 33, 29.
There you go.
Stafford, 29, 24, 32. That's 9-1, that one. I like that one.
That's nice.
A little bit less sort of like convoluted is Minnesota and Pittsburgh both to have 11 or more wins. That's 11-4. I'm sweet on both of those teams. I think they could both have. They're both going to dominate their respective divisions. And although I like San Francisco and I've bumped them up, I like the Rams to win all 6 games against their NFC West rivals. Mainly based on the fact that I think Arizona and Seattle are going to have a poor season. And I think although San Francisco are capable of getting 9 or 10 wins, couple of their defeats could come to the Rams. That's 8-1.
I do enjoy the attention to detail that's being paid here. Have you got stuck in quite so much as well?
I haven't really gone for the WhatsApp Paddies, but I've been going around all the Paddy Power's Special Markets, the other ones.
Right.
And I finally found something you can back Cleveland for. Miles Garrett, most sacks.
His heart is leaving his head.
Miles Garrett, 14-1 most sacks. I saw he was a couple of his pre-season appearances. He was looking really good because he's not injured like he was last year. And there were some guys saying, "Oh, we could get double-digit sacks this year." I think, yeah, that's the first 3 games. What about the rest of the season? He's an absolute monster, and he's going to. When they played. One for the purists, they beat Philadelphia 5-0 in a pre-season game the other week.
Really? You are clinging on to this pre-season philosophy. You were trying to drop it, and now it's back again.
He got the 2 of the 5 with the safety on Nick Foles. He's going to be an absolute monster this year. So I'd go over whatever sack line you want to set. I'll go over that. Most sacks he's 14-1. I was looking at Buffalo to have the worst record after they've neglected to come up with a quarterback to play for them this season. I know we've slagged off Denver a bit, but offensive rookie of the year, I think Royce Freeman is just currently a bit overpriced at the moment. He's 20s, I think, with power, but he's as short as 8-1 elsewhere. Now he's got the starting gig over Devontae Booker, who's not a bad player, but they've obviously been very impressed with him. It's only a second-rounder pick, I think, but he's going to start, and they still haven't really got a quarterback, so it's.
Gotcha. Love all gentlemen. A few Hail Marys there for you lot to pick up and run with if you fancy. But of course, we do have games. Week 1 is in. It's round the corner. And I believe there's only one thing I need to do at this stage, which is cue Steve. This will not be beaten. I'm impressed. And I'm also delighted that's as long as it lasts. I'm both of those things I'll settle with. Yes, it's Naps time. NFL anti-post Nats. Let's have one from each of you.
Okay, I'll go first. I do like Minnesota in the NFC North, but my nap is Green Bay not to make the playoffs at 6-4. There's such a huge, heavy reliance on Aaron Rodgers. They're in a big division. Minnesota's strong. Detroit, they could be stronger this year. I'm quite sweet on Chicago. And there's such a wealth of talent in the NFC that a wildcard spot is going to be so tough to. And you can't just rely on one player to do it. 6-4, Green Bay not to be in the playoffs.
There you go. That's nice. And your good stuff here?
I'm going to keep it simple. I go for a market everyone can find on their website and in the betting shops. Rams to win the Super Bowl. Los Angeles Rams to win the Super Bowl.
Well, I do like the all LA notion as well. That's kind of got me excited this year because it'd just be fun to see as well. Would you like to join in with us on this one here over at Paddy Power?
Yeah, my nap is my nap is Carolina Panthers to finish 3rd in the NFC South at 2-1. And as I mentioned earlier, I think that the top 2 teams are well ahead of the rest, and I think the Buccaneers will finish bottom there. So that would be my nap.
Lovely stuff. Well, Michal, thank you very much indeed. There's Michal from Paddy Power, of course, joining us there, bringing us all the odds and filling in. Thank you very much indeed for your enlightenment, expertise, and of course, in your particular case, the tragedy of being the Browns fan who's sitting here before us, trying to find a rationale to be involved in the whole season. But listen, good luck with everybody on that one here. Of course, there will be the preview from the Racing Post available to you very shortly after you've watched this. That is forthcoming. We'll be online as well, but look for the preview, of course, in the newspaper and the Postcast. They are covering golf, football, racing. They do the lot. You can follow those very easily indeed on YouTube and indeed on other platforms if you choose to subscribe. Thanks very much indeed. We'll see you again soon.
Follow Paddy Power on Snapchat. The username is ThePaddyPower, and we promise there won't be any boring snaps about gigs, the weather, or the gym.